Fox News has been touting its ESG, diversity and inclusion goals since 2020 in annual corporate social responsibility reports, and NewsCorp too. Tucker Carlson was fired for a reason. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today, we're going to be talking about Tucker Carlson's firing, but also Fox News and NewsCorp. NewsCorp used to own Fox Corporation, but then they spun it off. Rupert Murdoch, he kept NewsCorp, but then he spun it off to his son, Fox Corporation, which owns Fox News, but also Fox Sports, and the other Fox television properties that of the former News Corp company. And since then, they've been kind of going in a woke direction, and they've been touting ESG and diversity and inclusion goals since 2020, at least. This appears to have been in response to 2019 removal from the Vanguard fund. In the context of they're getting removed from the ESG funds, and then they respond by saying, no, we're on your side. We're going to be diverse. We're going to be inclusive, and we're going to go through this today. I wanted to give you an opportunity to see what's going on behind the scenes at companies, not just at Fox News, but more broadly. Over 80% of companies are touting ESG-like so-called sustainability goals, and there's a lot of pressure on publicly traded companies to embrace this kind of corporate woke agenda. I think that it's a major problem in so many respects, where you have Fox News is absolutely being kind of targeted with boycotts. This isn't the first time. Bill O'Reilly was taken off the air in 2017 with similar style boycotts, but Tucker Carlson has been targeted. Over a decade ago, Glenn Beck was targeted. Hannity, they've been going after him, Sean Hannity, for years. Similar style boycotts were used against Rush Limbaugh, I think, with great effect. And I need to share my screen here, but this image you see here, this is pretty much accurate. The Democrats have been pushing ESG. There's a body of federal regulations, Labor Department regulations, and tax incentives, tax deference for retirement funds is used as a way of getting corporations to go in this woke direction when you have major hedge funds and mutual funds, et cetera, like BlackRock, like Vanguard, that are able to pressure corporations into going into sort of this radical green and woke agendas. And so I wanted to go through my, I have to share my screen here again. I wanted to go through my piece from today. We want to share the window. And we want to go back over here. We're going to hit share. All right. So we go to my piece here, and you can see here that Fox has been touting its ESG goals since 2020. After Tucker Carlson's firing by Fox News, do high ratings even matter anymore? That might be a good question one might ask. From Fox News's termination of Carlson, the station's most highly rated host, who was easily winning cable news battle for the 8 p.m. slot for years, with an average of 3.25 million viewers a night for the past 4 months. This is from the Hollywood Reporter. Fox News shocked the media world Monday with the ouster of Carlson, who had presided over the top primetime show in cable news for several years. Carlson's show regularly drew better than 3 million viewers nightly, often ranking as the most watched primetime show on cable. It averaged about 3.25 million viewers per night over the first 4 months of this year alone. That's pretty impressive, if you ask me. Kind of the good news out of this is the truth will set you free, basically. This is a great tune by Tony Branco. He does cartoons for Americans for Limited Government, but also on his own. Here's one for AmericansCare.com. You could check them out. And he's breaking free of the shackles of Fox News, and now he's heading towards more free speech. And I think that's what's going to happen here. We're going to find that he's not going to be cowed. He's going to say and speak his mind. For years, Carlson was actually critical of the Black Lives Matter and Antifa's use of riots, violent riots in 2020, following the killing of George Floyd while in police custody in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and also of tyrannical COVID policies over the years, past 3 years. He's been criticizing the heck out of that. And, he's been criticizing, U.S. efforts to support the war in Ukraine and kind of escalating the situation there. The entire country there is destroyed now. So he has a lot of controversial takes that I think really rankle the establishment in Washington, D.C. and in the Republican Party. And so he's kind of problematic for them. But he's also their top ratings producer. So what do you do? But what that was what his audience was looking for, was his controversial takes, someone perceived to be fearlessly telling the truth in the face of the censors. But these also sparked organized boycotts against Carlson's advertisers by social and political groups favoring Democrats. Apparently, an effective strategy when corporate dollars stop coming in the doors, and actually have some data on that. Fast forward, this is from MediaVillage.com. Fast forward 8 years to 2020. Now the host is Tucker Carlson on Fox. He refers to Black Lives Matter demonstrators as, quote, criminal mobs, and mocks a Sesame Street special on racism. Again, advertisers boycott, including Disney, Papa John's, Poshmark, and T-Mobile. The advertisers were attracted by ratings. Carlson's show, the night he made those statements about Black Lives Matter, had 4.2 million viewers, making it the most watched TV show on the U.S. that night. On Fox, he was then higher rated than Sean Hannity. So you get the feeling here that this is a kind of a long time coming here. Even though the advertisers should be attracted to highly rated programs like Tucker Carlson's, that assumes they are using a profit motive and not some other motive. But today we know there is, in fact, another motive: stakeholder capitalism, or the so-called environmental, social, and governance investment model, ESG, that has found corporations seeking equity above profit. For their part, U.S. corporations have already made up their mind. A recent KPMG survey found 82% of U.S. corporations are touting ESG sustainability goals in their corporate filings. Even though doing so doesn't necessarily mean greater profits or even greater market caps for publicly traded companies per se. It's more like a protection racket. Tout the goals, carry the correct political water, fire people when necessary, and avoid the corporate embargo. And we can actually pull up the KPMG survey here. It shows what percent of top 10 countries and jurisdictions where companies include sustainability information in annual reports. And so it's 82% in the United States, 87% in the United Kingdom, 96% in Japan, 93% in Taiwan, and on down the line. This is a particularly my sharing of my screen didn't exactly work the way I intended here. So we're gonna stop the screen, and we're gonna present again. We need to share the screen. We need to go to the window, and we need to do what we want to do: the Chrome tab. We want to do the entire screen. We want to do the window. So we go over here. We share that, and it still keeps pulling up the other thing. That's very disappointing. I wanted to show this to you, and now I've messed up my screen sharing mechanism here. Let's see if I can remove that. Stop screen, present, share screen. We're going to do the entire window. Let's do the entire screen. We'll do it that way. There we go. There's the KPMG survey. Earlier, I was showing you the Hollywood Reporter here. I wanted to show you Tucker Carlson, The Truth Sets You Free. Sorry about that, guys, but here's the KPMG survey. And it clearly shows that 82% of U.S. companies that are publicly traded, many of them, according to the survey, KPMG, are using the corporate sustainability model, the so-called ESG model, and it's having a tremendous impact. And so it should surprise nobody that Fox Corporation, which owns Fox News, and NewsCorp, which used to own Fox and owns the Wall Street Journal, have been touting environmental, social, and governance ESG goals in their corporate filings in order to attract woke investment dollars since at least 2020. A review of the company's corporate filings reveals Fox's explicit ESG reports appeared to follow the company's removal in 2019 from Vanguard's ESG fund. And so this is a clear indication of what direction they've been going in. If you look at the Fox corporate social responsibility report here, it starts in 2020. I mentioned that they are touting diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is from the 2020 report. And here's kind of how I think, they were already in an ESG fund, apparently, in 2019, December 5th, 2019, Fox Corporation announces correction by FTSE, Russell, and removal from gambling business activity exclusion list. Fox Corporation today announced that FTSE Russell removed the company's common stock from its gambling business activity exclusion list. FTSE's Russell's correction followed a challenge by the company and a review that determined Fox's level of involvement in the betting industry falls below the equity ownership threshold for classification on the gambling business activity exclusion list. Fox challenged the classification earlier this year when it caused the company's stock to be removed from Vanguard ESG funds created to invest in companies with strong environmental, social, and governance records. So they challenged this. They wanted to get back into the Vanguard fund. And they've been using these reports ever since. Here's the 2022 report on inclusion and diversity from Fox Corporation. We are committed to diversity at the very top. Our board of directors requires that minority and female candidates are represented for more consideration with each director vacancy. We believe that the more voices in the room and the more diverse the experiences, the better Fox's internal culture and external programming are. Our diversity enables us to be more reflective of the audiences we reach and enhances our ability to create news, sports, and entertainment program that serves all viewers across the country. An inclusive and diverse workplace is not merely a strategy or a business objective. It is fundamentally woven into the fabric of the company. This commitment begins with our approach to talent recruitment across all disciplines. Here's the executive vice president of human resources and the vice president of diversity and inclusion of Fox Corporation monitor and oversee diversity initiatives and data on an ongoing basis. Hey, they have racial and gender hiring quotas. Here we go again, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. Moreover, we have voluntarily posted our information on our 2021 Employment Information Report, EEO1, showing the race, ethnicity, and gender of our U.S. employees. For example, by the end of 2021, our first and mid-level employees and managers were approximately 41.7% female and 30.6% non-white. Similarly, our employees categorized as professionals were 36.7% female and 35.3% non-white. We are proud of our workforce and our ongoing efforts to further its diversity. So they're trying to hit their quotas, and they're touting success in this regard. Again, in 2020, they were looking at the similar numbers here at the manager level, where so many promising early career employees initially exercise leadership. 47% are female and 33% are persons of color. In calendar year 2019, 50% of promotions were female employees. I wonder if 50% of candidates for promotion were female. or if it was lopsided more. Maybe there's more men who work there. Just in general, that tends to be true. Men have higher labor participation rates than females, so it makes sense that perhaps there were more men in line for promotions, but they were kind of put aside so that they could hit a 50% threshold number. And this was in 2019 and 2019. Women hold key leadership positions at Fox and account for 29% of EVPs, executive vice presidents, and 34% of SVPs company-wide. The executive vice president of human resources and vice president of diversity and inclusion monitor and oversee these important diversity metrics. So this is pretty much what you'd expect from a company touting ESG. You're probably surprised to learn that it's Fox News and Fox Corporation that's doing this. But I also wanted to show you that it's not just them, that you have companies like NewsCorp, which used to own Fox. They also have their ESG report that they put out there, sharing our environmental, social, and governance goals and progress with our stakeholders. Our ESG mission, there's always been a profound social purpose to what we do every day at NewsCorp, from providing news to inform the world to sharing stories that change lives. So this is their 2022 ESG report. And so, they own the Wall Street Journal, they own the New York Post. These are kind of more Republican and conservative leaning publications. And certainly Fox News always kind of fit that bill there. But, you see more of a, kind of pressure to not put the Murdochs don't want Trump on the air anymore. They don't want, promoting his 2024 candidacy in particular. And a huge part of that is because of ESG. And so I took some of Tony Branco's cartoons here and I wove them together to kind of create a visual illustration of what we think is going on here. And I think this is accurate. I think this is, reflective of what's going on with Fox right now. It wants those woke capitalist dollars. And unsurprisingly, Fox has been touting its diversity and inclusion corporate agenda that include legally questionable racial and gender hiring quotas. We went through this part already, but these appear to run afoul of the 1964 Civil Rights Act prohibition on employment discrimination on the basis of race and sex. This is the US EEOC, Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And then you can look this up, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which prohibits employment discrimination and racial and gender hiring quotas as they appear to be using here. But the law itself says, quote, it shall be unlawful practice for an employer to fail to or refuse to hire or to discharge any individual or to otherwise discriminate against any individual with respect to his compensation terms or privileges of employment because of such individuals' race, color, religion, sex, or national origin, or to limit, segregate, or classify his employees or applicants for employment in any way which would deprive or tend to deprive any individual of employment opportunities or otherwise adversely affect his status as an employee because of such individual's race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. And so how do we know that Fox News knows that what it's doing with these racial and gender hiring quotas is legally questionable? Because they won't report on it. This is something that Republicans are focused on. Here is America First has a legal letter into the EEOC, that's the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, federal agency, where they're accusing Anheuser-Busch of racial and gender hiring quotas. And we went over this last week. America First legal files civil rights complaint against Anheuser-Busch's racial and gender hiring quotas as a violation of Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And they do a pretty good job of citing very similar types of racial and gender hiring quotas that America First, this is Nicholas Berry of America First Legal Foundation, says violates Title VII of the Civil Rights Act. And I agree with that. I've been writing about this since February, that this is a point of attack by Republicans So this was one of former President Donald Trump's groups. He's headed by former advisor Stephen Miller, against Anheuser-Busch's ESG-driven racial and gender hiring quotas. The complaint against AB InBev, the Belgian company, they're globally owned now, that owns Anheuser-Busch, followed a consumer-led revolt against a beer maker after using transgender activist Dylan Mulvaney to try to sell Bud Light, or not sell it, depending on your perspective. If Fox had reported on the seemingly illegal racial and gender hiring quotas, again, if you search it on Google, they didn't touch this story at all. They don't want you to know about America First Legal filing civil rights complaints to the EEOC for racial and gender hiring quotas. Why? Because then they would have to admit in its reporting that they were doing exactly the same thing. They were using exactly the same discriminatory practices that are now being targeted by Republicans. And so you got to kind of question, is the Wall Street Journal and New York Post and Fox News, are they pulling their punches on reporting on ESG? Because it hasn't been very good. I'll tell you that much. We feel like we're a little bit of a voice in the wilderness on this issue, but we're going to keep talking about it because I think it's highly relevant to the situation that we find ourselves in today. And you can look no further than this kind of corporate responsibility reports. ESG is really one of the biggest boycotts out there. When you look at how they went after Tucker Carlson for criticizing the Black Lives Matter, the riots of 2020 after George Floyd was killed. Now, it has certainly been questioned before. This is legally questionable. A 1979 Supreme Court ruling, Steelworkers v. Weber. We've gone through this before as well. This actually legalized reverse discrimination under Title VII, kind of in an Orwellian fashion. And so William Rehnquist, he was an associate justice at the time. It was actually offered a dissenting opinion in Steelworkers v. Weber, noting that they had basically made the Title VII of the Civil Rights Act completely inoperative. They did the opposite of what the law actually stated. We just read the law to you on Title VII. It was found that employment policies that racial preferences on the and sex preferences in favor of women and minorities, which plaintiffs argued was reverse discrimination, were somehow not a violation of the Civil Rights Act, in effect legalizing employment discrimination against whites and males. It was a sharp departure from more racially neutral interpretations of the Civil Rights Act. Associate Justice Rehnquist, he compared it to George Orwell, and stating, quote, 1984, where you have newspeak, it's kind of the opposite. War is peace, freedom is slavery, etc. Quote, taken in its normal meaning and as understood by all members of Congress who spoke to the issue during the legislative debates of the Civil Rights Act, this language prohibits a covered employer from considering race when making an employment decision, whether the race be black or white. Rehnquist blasted the majority of the court, adding, the court behaves much like the Orwellian speaker described earlier, as if he had just been handed a note stating that Title VII would lead to a result unacceptable to the court if interpreted here as it was in our prior decisions. Now we are told that the legislative history of Title VII shows that employers are free to discriminate on the basis of race. An employer may, in the court's words, trammel the interests of the white employees in favor of black employees in order to eliminate, quote, racial imbalance. Our earlier interpretations of Title VII, like the banners and posters decorating the square in Oceana, were all wrong. And so that's where we are living now, in Oceana, where our news and information is largely controlled by corporations with a collectivist agenda that you might not be fully aware of because they're not reporting on it. They don't have an interest. There's a conflict of interest here, guys. To silence voices who speak up for the American people, these corporations are compromised. Fox is definitely an increasing part of that. According to its June 2022 standards of business conduct and so-called ethics, here's their standards of business conduct. They state that our commitment to fair competition, content integrity, and communities we serve, the marketplace of ideas, is where Fox and its business units thrive. Our success is built on the principles of free expression, free inquiry, and freedom of choice. It's also true our participation in the business world generally, where we protect our reputation for honesty, transparency, and fair competition. Our credibility is the core to our success. Okay, so they say they have editorial independence. The First Amendment and the fundamental values it reflects our integral to who we are and what we do as an important source of news, information, analysis. We play a leading role in the marketplace of ideas. Our flagship news properties are some of the most influential in history, and we respect the significant responsibility that comes with being a steward for the people's right to know. In keeping with the Constitution's protections of the freedom of the press, we guard and defend our journalists in their search for the truth. We do not let revenue sources dictate our news and opinion content. What a joke. What a joke. This is newspeak. This is Orwellian. This is not true. This is an investor pamphlet. This is not what they're actually doing when you look at their policies. And so I don't think they're guarding or defending anything here. Carlson's dismissal also follows his predecessor in the 8 p.m. slot, Bill O'Reilly, who was also the station's ratings juggernaut prior to his 2017 dismissal following sexual harassment allegations that was leading to another advertising boycott. Other popular hosts who lost their jobs at Fox include Glenn Beck in 2011 following an advertising boycott. This is from Reuters, Christine Kearney and Alex Dobozinkas. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I always do that. But yeah, Glenn Beck and Fox News and daily TV show. He was getting 1.9 million viewers, dwarfing the ratings of other cable news shows in that time slot. Some reports estimate about 300 companies have either pulled their ads or declined to run commercials on his show in the past 18 months after he spoke out against former President Barack Obama. He said that he had a, quote, deep-seated hatred for white people. And then there was also Jewish organizations who were upset that he was targeting the political financier of radical causes, George Soros. And so there were lots of petitions, and it leads to 300 companies pulling their ads or declining to run commercials in the Glenn Beck program. This is despite the fact that his show again drew nearly 2 million viewers. And similar boycotts were actually waged effectively against the late Rush Limbaugh, easily the most highly rated conservative talk radio host in history, beginning in 2012 when he criticized calls for legislation by then Georgetown University law professor Sandra Fluke by personally attacking her, calling her a slut or a prostitute. And because why? Quote, she wants you and me and the taxpayers to pay for her to have sex. Now, this actually led to an apology by Limbaugh, but it shows how effective these boycotts that are now being driven by ESG, the advertiser boycotts, can be against conservative personalities and people who are going to pursue their truth. They're going to do their best to do reporting. Maybe it's going to have a Republican slant or a conservative slant, but that's the First Amendment. We have to have the ability, as conservatives, to speak out against policies that we disagree with. You can criticize, taxpayer dollars going to contraception. You could say that's not appropriate, and that taxpayers shouldn't be paying for it, especially people who disagree with that, or abortions for that matter. You can have that. Rush Limbaugh was targeted by a major advertiser boycott. Did it work? This is from Media Village again. Rush Limbaugh has died, and the obituaries are highlighting his long career. He was an effective broadcaster. His background was in top 40 radio. And let's see here, but there's a so-called dark side to Limbaugh's success, one he shares with other talk show hosts. In 2012, he called Georgetown University law student Sandra Fluke. She was testifying before Congress, urging employer health plans to cover contraception. And then some 140 advertisers pulled their sponsorship of the program, including AccuQuote, Life Insurance, Service Magic, Polycom, Hadid Carpet, Thompson Creek and Bridgeport, Connecticut's St. Vincent's Medical Center. 2 radio stations also nixed his show. It was plain that advertisers love high ratings, but they hate any damage to their brand reputation. And so you got hundreds of thousands of signatures here. And we mentioned, this is the same article where they note that these boycotts have been ongoing. But Bill O'Reilly, we mentioned him earlier. He lost 47 advertisers, including Allstate and Mercedes-Benz in 2017. After accusations of sexual misconduct in his show, which generated $446 million of ad volume from 2014 to 2016 for Fox, was canceled. A year later, Laura Ingraham went after Parkland High School shooting survivor David Hogg, and she lost Wayfair, Hulu, Johnson & Johnson, and Nestle. She took a week's hiatus and apologized on Twitter. Let's see here. Sean Hannity is at the top of the list. Tell advertisers to drop Fox, Media Matters says against Sean Hannity. It's hard to compare the long record of ad boycotts against so-called rightist talk radio with the left-wing competition because Amy Goodman hosts the only nationally successful left-leaning show. Let's see. Rachel Maddow is mentioned here. But you get the idea that they are in a kind of life or death struggle. Fox News is with these advertisers. That is their lifeblood. They're, they're going to be on DirecTV. They're going to be on Verizon. They're going to be on other cable providers and satellite providers, Dish TV and so forth. And they can't afford to be losing advertisers if that's the way that they're going to make money. But these are highly rated programs. The advertisers, they can speak to Republicans and they will make money. It's these pressure tactics and campaigns that are kind of pushing for equity over profit. And so even if these advertisers lose money, they're okay with that if it harms Fox News. If it gets rid of Fox News, they think Fox News helped to get former President Donald Trump elected. They don't want, Trump to be on the radio. Here's Paul Ryan. He's over at Fox Corporation. And after the 2022 midterms, they wanted to blame Trump for the outcome of the midterms, where Republicans actually picked up the House of Representatives and they had more people voting for them in a Republican kind of red wave year, 54 million, than had voted in 2014 red wave or the 2010 red wave, where Republicans had picked up a lot more seats, but that was because turnout was much lower. Democrats turned out a lot too, but not because they lost votes, Republicans didn't lose votes to Democrats. Democrats were able to turn out their base as they were in 2020 to otherwise kind of counteract what should have been a very good year for Republicans in 2020 and in 2022. In 2020, Trump was running for re-election, but then he had COVID. You had 25 million jobs lost. The economy tanked, but he still ran really strong on the campaign trail. He didn't lose any votes. He got like 11 million more votes than he did in 2016. And similarly, Republicans in 2022 in the House of Representatives, they won the popular vote. They got 54 million votes, about 3 million more than Democrats. They picked up a bunch of seats, not as many as they were hoping for. And they didn't win some of these Senate races that they were hoping to win. But that was because Democrats were turning out in greater numbers in 2022, likely because of the Dobbs decision that overturned Roe v. Wade. They had an extra incentive to show up. And on it goes, with boycotts also targeting Sean Hannity for many years, but where he's still the 9 p.m. host. But for how long, one wonders. Maybe if his ratings go up again, he'll become a target, right? He'll do something controversial. His ratings will jump up a few million. And then suddenly they'll be targeting him with even more boycotts. And then, Fox is not going to stand by its journalists. We guard and defend our journalists and search for their truth. Well, why weren't they guarding and defending Tucker Carlson? He's just been silenced. He was their top ratings producer. He should have been, therefore the greatest source of revenue for Fox News. Maybe go find some different advertisers or, stick to what you say. We don't let revenue sources dictate our news and opinion content. Like heck, you don't. Of course, that's exactly what happened here. But perhaps high ratings equals high risk. Advertisers are not interested in seeking out millions of viewers to sell products as much as being spooked by advertiser boycotts and campaigns waged against by groups against what they perceive as a conservative news channel that Republicans could actually watch without too much bias against their own leaders and causes. Like it's supposed to be fair and balanced. And Republicans actually got to get their viewpoint out on a place like Fox News. Maybe not for too much longer, though. Maybe Trump's not welcome there anymore. Let's see. The boycotts are absolutely political from groups supporting Democrats today. They are being driven by corporate ESG, and the best part is the news companies they are purchasing. You think about it, it's an investment model. So you have like BlackRock and Vanguard. They'll invest in like oil companies to make them not oil companies, so that they can go green, so they can push net zero by 2050 on carbon emissions. They're not trying to sell you oil. They're not, and so that you can see why they would want to buy into a company like Fox and force them into these ESG directions. Will never be obliged to report on itself, the news companies that are doing this, in a negative light about what is driving their unprofitable decisions. Nor will it report not too deeply about the regulatory and tax incentives for ESG that exist. Are they even allowed to? Again, they do not seek profit, but equity. That's ESG. So they're not trying to sell us Tucker Carlson or the Fox News brand. They want Republicans in name only. They're not trying to sell us oil. They want net zero carbon emissions or beer. They want to end so-called toxic masculinity and water consumption and manufacturing to do with beer. And from the ESG perspective, these are all harmful industries that need to become woke, diverse, inclusive, and green, or ultimately be eliminated because they do not serve this collectivist agenda to destroy America. Either way, they win. The message is clear: bend the knee or pay the price, and you could be next. And that's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and let's go to the comments now. We're going to bring this over here so I can see the comments. Let's see here. We'll go to the top here. Chat's fired up here today. Let's see. Anna Stewart. Hello, all. I pray Rick is doing well. Rick is doing just fine. I'm filling in today. I had an important piece to do at Fox News today. We wanted to talk about what's going on with Tucker Carlson being fired, and from kind of the corporate perspective, what's going on behind the scenes here and exposing Fox News's ESG agenda. Let's see. Jojo Jernigan talking about Tucker. He got fired because he's a conservative. I agree. I think that's exactly right. He was telling the truth from his perspective, his conservative perspective, and maybe he's more libertarian. But in any event, he was, doing controversial takes that kind of rankled the establishment. I bet you next week he was going to start talking about the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. Reauthorization is up for consideration in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. I bet you he was going to bring Jim Jordan, Glenn Greenwald, Tulsi Gabbard, and others to talk about surveillance of the Trump campaign in 2016, how this illegal surveillance was carried over into the Trump administration, even after he had been elected. And these abuses that occurred because the Hillary Clinton campaign paid for a pack of lies, that somehow the Trump campaign had conspired with Russia to hack the DNC and put these emails onto WikiLeaks. But the Mueller report actually exonerated Trump and found that he had done nothing, no conspiracy with Russia was found that they could prosecute. Let's go on here. Diane Lee Begat. Facebook is on a CCP style censorship rage. Oh no, watch out on Facebook, guys. Let's see. Cindy Grant Ziga, Fox is dead news to me. See, this is what happens. So you can, and I think the ESG investors are okay with this outcome. So either you accept this new kind of green or woke agenda, or you can boycott it. And then this so-called harmful company or industry dies. Kind of a news network that slightly maybe favors Republicans just by not lying about them. So you can have unintended consequences. So you think that there's still good people there at Fox that you want to support? You still like Sean Hannity? Watch Sean Hannity. You like Laura Ingraham? You can watch Laura Ingraham, or Mark Levin's still over there. These are, pretty good personalities. They're pretty good at, expressing Republican and conservative views. But if you don't want to give your money to Fox, if you are that upset about what they did to Tucker Carlson, who could blame you? But there are consequences, and so they want oil to go away. They want, maybe they want beer to go away. They want Fox News to go away. And so these are things that one way or another, they're going to get what they want. Either you're going to embrace their agenda, or you're going to reject it and then stop buying that product, and then the harmful industry dies. It's kind of it's a big problem when you think about it. Let's see. He'll be just fine. We love Tucker, says Chuck Miller. Thank you, Chuck. Anna Stewart, they didn't appreciate honesty at Fox News. Apparently not. Johnny Pavetto, won't be watching Fox anymore. You are turning to liberal Newsmax. You are turning to liberal Newsmax for me, says Johnny Pavetto. So yeah, there are alternatives to Fox. You could check out Newsmax. You could check out OAN. And I bet you Tucker's going to probably be launching his own channels going forward. Anna Stewart agrees. Tucker will go on and succeed. Thank you, Anna. And she also says that she never watches Fox. Okay. Let's see. Sandy Messine De Palma. No more Fox in this house. It's Newsmax 100%. All right. Let's see here. Rob Powell says Tucker is awesome. I agree. He was a very effective voice on our side of the political spectrum here. Diane Liebegut. We the people need to put the fear into these CCP traitors to the United States. Phyllis Miller Starr, no more Fox for me. They caved to the left. It looks that way. Rick Jeeper, Murdoch is a liberal. Anna Stewart again. CCP needs to stay in China. We don't need their business in Michigan. Ginny Bannister, bye-bye Fox. Never again. Marcel Knight, rest in peace, Fox News. Michael Dellum, the ESG is going to kill this country. Yeah, I think there's an agenda that's being clearly expressed to, get us off of fossil fuels, but we need fossil fuels to power our economy. Even Elon Musk, one of the greatest beneficiaries of ESG, with his electric vehicles maker, Tesla, and lots of green subsidies there for that company as well. Even he admits that we still need oil and natural gas to power our economy, particularly after the Russian invasion of Ukraine. So we need oil, we need gas, and we need voices. We need people who can speak out against policies. We need, can Republicans really afford to lose Fox News as a vehicle to get their word out? I'm not too certain. Mark Beloyd, abolish the current government and rebuild it over again. I don't think we're going to do better than our Constitution, quite honestly. We need to protect what we have. Life's too short, and the civil society is precious. So I'd encourage you to participate in your civil institutions. That includes voting. That includes contacting your members of Congress, because there are policies, there are laws and regulations they should be voting on. They could be addressing this. We've spoken about this before. We've mentioned today the Title VII violations of the Civil Rights Act by corporations that are touting ESG-driven diversity and inclusion, racial and gender hiring quotas. That's employment discrimination that they're engaged in. And 82% of companies are touting these sustainability goals on carbon emissions. And you got oil companies that are lowering production at the behest of the ESG investors. BlackRock took over ExxonMobil, and they're restricting oil production. And as a result, the prices are going to the moon. Consumers are getting gouged at the gas pump on prices. And that's collusive, that's anti-competitive, that violates antitrust. So Republicans, they could be, if you get a Republican president in there, maybe it's Trump, maybe it's DeSantis or somebody else, they could enforce antitrust laws against ESG. They could say no retirement investments to companies that are violating antitrust, or Title VII of the Civil Rights Act with these racial and gender hiring quotas. So there are policies that we should be pursuing, I think, that can effectively address this and kind of turn back the tide a little bit here. Anna Stewart again. Hopefully Fox can do nothing but sink. Cindy Grant Ziga. My instincts tell me that with the announcement of current commander in chief, benefits were paid to mainstream news sources. YouTube included to drop the people who will not support the current president. Even my favorite YouTube channel was wiped out yesterday. Sorry to hear that, Cindy. There are tax incentives, tax deference. We mentioned it for retirement investments. That tend to go to these ESG style funds. And then, if you have your money at a BlackRock or a Vanguard, they're going to invest that money for you. They're going to use your shares to vote for the boards of directors on these companies. And it can have a major impact on the company's policies. And so, yeah, there are incentives. It's not like there's like checks of money coming from the White House or something to go like, oh, go get rid of this person or that person. There could be political pressure that's applied as well. But I think that the incentives are clear enough. Labor Department has ESG regulations. The Bush and Trump administrations had ESG regulations, but didn't exactly get rid of it. We need to do more. We need to use antitrust. We need to use Title VII. And I think we can push back against this more effectively going forward. Anna Stewart, all conspiracy theories. So they say truth isn't so any longer. Okay. Ray Bell, this country is in big trouble. I agree. Sandra Barsda DeLong, Tucker Carlson for vice president. I don't know if he's going to run for political office. That would be interesting. But maybe he's an effective voice that we still need out there to speak truth on these issues. Anna Stewart, agree, Ray, that the country's in big trouble. Valerie Rogers from YouTube, thanks for joining us. So in other words, compromise one's moral core belief and dignity to fit in and gain profits. I don't know that this is profitable. You knock O'Reilly off the map and then they're able to recover because Tucker Carlson was very personable and very popular. And so they managed to recover from that. Now they've just taken out their ratings juggernaut again. And maybe after the Bud Light boycott, though, they're not going to get as many viewers back this time. Maybe people are waking up to what's really going on. And so they're not going to, kind of fool me once, fool me twice situation. They might not be back next time. But whoever they put into that 8 p.m. slot better be spectacular, as spectacular as either O'Reilly or Carlson were. Here's Sandy Messine de Palma again. You're right. Pray for America. That's right. Say your prayers, guys. Sam Abbo, I personally never watched Fox News. And people get fired and lead off from the business. So Tucker is not the only one. You will be in our prayers, Mr. Tucker. Let's see here. Lee Graham, my prediction is Tucker will be in charge of Fox on its rebuild after its crash is finished. He will restaff and completely remake it of the giant. I'm a little skeptical. I don't think that Tucker is going to wind up owning or running Fox News. I think the Murdochs are going to control the Fox Corporation for the rest of the time. Rupert Murdoch spun off the Fox Corporation. His son Lachlan, he runs Fox News now, and he runs the Fox Corporation. That's Fox Sports, Fox Business, Fox News, the Fox Television networks, etc. That's a big business, and so they're going to, unfortunately, do what they're told, apparently. Let's see here. Sandy Messine de Palma, this proves Fox doesn't like someone who tells the truth. Apparently so. Sam Abbo, America needs President Trump more than anything in this world. Trump has a plan to ban ESG. He thought he banned it in 2020, but the Labor Department regulation only touched about 1/3, a little bit more than 1/3 of retirement accounts, employer-based defined benefit and defined contribution plans. So you're going to need something a bit more expansive. And I think focusing in on antitrust and Title VII violations is the way to go. Forrest Grammer shared, America needs to know. I agree. Mike Mize, Fox is turning into CNN. Here is Carol Perker. Fox is done. What a trash can of employees, not quality employees, hired by color or gender. Disgusting. Murdoch isn't even America. Boycott now. I can see why you'd be upset. That's why I wanted to report this to you, not to make you upset, but so that you'll be educated. You'll understand how pervasive ESG is. Even Fox News, they've been doing this for years. So if you've noticed changes in their content and the type of reporting that they do, This probably goes back to that. It's who owns the companies, and how are they going to impose their agenda on that company, and use advertiser kind of boycotts as a sort of blackmail to get what they want. James Ross, they will screw people over too, won't they? Yeah, I bet you Tucker's viewers feel like they were screwed over. Jane Vet, SC, not sure what that is. Sam Abbo, everything happens to this world. They blame Trump. What the heck is going on? They don't like him. Trump was an effective president. He spoke to the American people. He grew the Republican Party. They don't want the Republican Party growing. They don't want independents and maybe union households in Pennsylvania and Michigan to be voting for Trump, and kind of doing the tariffs and enacting trade deals that were in America's interest, or building the wall on the southern border and having a strong border policy so that the country isn't overrun by millions of illegal immigrants, and basically enfranchising themselves over time as they marry into the franchise. And they're going to vote 2-1 Democrats. So why would they want Trump there making deals in America's advantage, and doing policies that can at least preserve some semblance of the two-party system? Trump won in 2016, but not by much. Now, Biden didn't win in 2020 by that much either. So this could actually redound to Trump's favor in 2024, and the Republicans, believe it or not. He went from 63 million to 74 million votes from 2016 to 2020. Will Trump continue that record of building the Republican Party remains to be seen. But, I wouldn't bet against it. BG2. True, Valerie. That says it all. This is all irrelevant when it's just selfish, hedonistic Democrats. Okay. Thanks for joining us from YouTube. James Ross from Facebook. Yeah, just go ahead and blame it on Trump and get it out front. Yeah, but it's not fair to blame Trump for the 2022 midterms. Because the party grew, Republicans were able to withstand Democrats boosting their turnout in opposition to the Dobbs decision. Nancy Christine, I'm so happy. Oh, we don't want to read that one. And that is spam. Go away, spam. Sam Abbo, the billionaires never admitted the accomplishments of President Trump. They don't need to. I think the American people know Biden and Hunter, a criminal organization, must be prosecuted. Again, prosecuting your political opponents can be, can lead to reciprocity. You can get a kind of a political, legal war going on where everyone's just going to round up their political opponents and prosecute them. I bet you we won't have very effective governance, and that's going to interfere with our elections. Is that the direction we really want to bring the country? Is that the country you want to leave for your children and grandchildren? I want my, children to grow up in a country where they're free to speak their minds, and you're going to have policies. You're going to have free and fair elections, and then we're going to respect those elections, and we're going to allow President Trump, if he wins, to implement his policies and not have top secret investigations on him by the intelligence agencies and the FBI, which absolutely interfered in the elections, and then interfered in the transfer of power, to peaceful transfer of power in 2016 and 2017 was undermined because the federal government, the outgoing Obama administration, they didn't want to let Trump have any advantage. Let's see here. Carlo Bernasconi. Conservatives are systematically losing their voices in the mainstream news media. Facebook is silencing conservatives either by suspending or shadow banning. Now what? How do we get the truth out there? If you're being shadow banned on social media, whether it's Facebook or YouTube or something like that, you can check out alternatives. Twitter's policies are getting better since Elon Musk took over. You can follow us at Limit GOVT on Twitter. You can also check us out on Truth Social. We're Limit GOV on Truth Social. A great social network over there as well. We've already gotten almost 20,000 supporters over there. There are alternatives on Rumble. Like if you can't find us on YouTube anymore for some reason, you can check out Americans for Limited Government on Rumble. And so there are alternatives. And I think we're at the bottom of the chat here. This is Robert Romano. Thank you for joining us. Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications. Thank you, Sam Abbo, for joining us, and have a good night.